Well, good morning, everyone. Yes. Welcome to, for us anyway, the second day of Macworld. I know some things started just before that, but for the second day of Macworld. And it's another gloriously beautiful day out there. And so hopefully you can get all your stuff done and catch some of it before it's over. I am. A lot of us have been running on no sleep for the last countless weeks because we're just working so hard on all these amazing products. There's so many cool things yesterday. Did anyone find anything surprising yesterday they weren't expecting? Hopefully a few people, yeah, a few hands. That's what we live for, and we just love to come and surprise and delight customers with cool new things. But that's not what we're going to do this morning. No, this morning, thank you for joining us in a session that we call The Power of 10. It's our second installment of The Power of 10, and the idea behind the session that we and IDG came up with was the growing base of macOS 10 users include a lot of diverse people, some people with very little knowledge and they need some basic rudimentary 101 stuff, and others who know a lot more about it and want to get into some of the detailed stuff. And so let's be a little more detailed in this session. Let's not be afraid to get a little techie, a little geeky. And we did that last year and we're going to do that again this year. We're going to talk about some of the more technical details. As much as we can bear in just an hour of time. And so this is, again, the Power of 10. Now, we're not going to repeat stuff from last year, hopefully. So for those who watched last year's session or were here, thanks again for coming a second time. And we won't talk about basic fundamental technologies again and repeat that. We'll build on with some of the newer topics and some of the newer things we've been doing. And that means we're going to cover some more diverse area this time than last time. And so it's sort of a macOS 10 potpourri. So hopefully you'll follow along with us as we move from technologies topics to higher level application topics, and you'll see a common thread through all that. Now, just to reiterate one point from yesterday, which I'm just so amazed at, so happy at, for those of you who are running macOS 10, you are not alone, right? There are 5 million of you, by our best estimates, out there using macOS 10 as your default boot operating system. And how many people here are running macOS 10? Well, that's very, very good. For those who aren't, there weren't many hands that didn't go up, but you probably know someone who isn't, and we'll provide you some things to help you persuade them before the time is done. But this 5 million number is just tremendous because, by my reckoning, this is the fastest complete new operating system transition in the history of the computer industry, as a percent of a user base. There's approximately 25 million active Mac users in the world, always hoping it's growing more and more, but that's a rough number, the best estimate that can be made. So this is very, very big base to move in just about 2 years. And when you figure that just over half of those have G3 and G4 machines capable of running macOS 10, it's even more astounding to get these kind of numbers. And we want to continue to grow at this pace. And one of the things that's helped, of course, is the great feedback we get from all of you and from the press. Here's one great example. On our Best Products of the Year, Business Week, I covered Jaguar as one of the best products of last year. I just read one line. The newest version, called Jaguar, reestablishes Apple as a leader in software design. I mean, that's what it's all about, right? Isn't that why we all got on the Mac? This is the coolest, most breakthrough, best technology. We needed to get back there again, and that was the goal with macOS 10. And we're not done. This is a 10-plus year product that's going to be with us for a long time. It's going to evolve and grow, but now it's there, and we can all put our efforts on continuing to move it at a very fast pace. As I mentioned, you probably know, like I do, one or two stragglers who haven't made the jump to macOS 10 yet. And there are just so many reasons that people should and must do that now. It's really past time to give up the Ghost of 9 and get on to 10. I'm going to just flip through some slides here. We won't read them all. They're from our macOS 10 website to illustrate some of the differences now and why it's crazy to not be on 10. Now, for example, of course, the ones you know about protected memory, preempted multitasking, a real symmetric multiprocessing. You know about, yeah, isn't that cool? The nice keynote transitions. Somehow I expect we're going to be seeing a lot of those from everybody. And you'll be able to say, that presentation was done on a Mac, right? That's probably the best thing about it. Cool things like live window resizing, quick stuff you can do with the toolbars now that were never possible before, beautiful large icons, Oh, there's lots more. Rendezvous. Rendezvous is a Mac OS 10 technology. We're only implementing it on 10. You want to share files with your Windows friends with the built-in SMB support. That's 10 only. There's cool new stuff we're doing with LDAP and Open Directory, all 10 only. Oh, there's lots more. There's the Quartz imaging model. We're going to be talking some more about Quartz this time. Built-in PDF support, OpenType fonts. JPEG 2000, if you haven't used this with your graphics, a great new graphics format implemented in QuickTime only on Mac OS 10. And it just goes on and on. There's things like Bluetooth. We're now starting to build Bluetooth into our products. You've seen that begin. And it's supported only in 10. We've got this great instant sleep and wake up. Java 2, the latest versions on Mac OS 10. Some really cool stuff with Core Audio that you're going to get to see before we're done here today. Amazing stuff, only on 10. Now, I know there are people who have their reasons for being on Mac OS 9, and we recognize that. There are some reasons why people stay online. Maybe they like that one app can crash the whole system. Right? We all learned to share as kids. Why can't apps share the memory? Or maybe they like managing their extensions. Right? People like the extension manager and miss it and don't want to lose it. So I'm sure there is some fun, this is obviously tongue-in-cheek, some fun reasons to stick with Mac OS 9, but most of us have moved forward. So that's all we'll say about that today. Jaguar is by far the best OS release Apple's ever put out there, and one of the most successful ones, too, driving this tremendous growth in Mac OS 10. And so, with over 150 new features, we thought, let's cover them all today. What do you think? No. One person wants to, but he works for me, so he's being kind. Now, we're going to cover some of the great features in Mac OS 10. We're going to cover Quartz. We're going to talk a little bit about Mail, if you haven't had a chance to explore that. We're going to get inside Safari, some of the Unix core technologies. So those are the things we're going to cover in the brief amount of time we have. Let's start right with the base of the system, with Unix. Now, we're not going to talk about all the great things you already know from last time and on your own as well, discovering how solid this foundation is for an operating system, and how I think we have today the most stable personal computer operating system on the planet. Now, that's incredible to have moved from Mac OS 9, which was not the most stable operating system on the planet. We all learned how to handle those resets and restarts, to something that is now the most stable on the planet. And we're really proud of that. But the other thing we're proud of is this is now the #1 most popular Unix client operating system today. We have now increased the install base of active Mac OS 10 users in the last year by 3.8 million new users in 1 year. No other desktop Unix operating system, or portable operating system for Unix, has done that. Now, the great thing is we did it in a way where most users don't have to care that they're running Unix, and that's good. But there are a lot of other people who actually do care. They're coming from other Unix environments, and they're discovering that Mac OS 10 is probably the best desktop Unix out there. So we care about that. So under the hood, for most of the Mac users who don't need to care, we've been quietly making Mac OS 10 a better and better Unix platform for those Unix customers. And so here are some of the things we've done. We've updated the FreeBSD technology in there. We've updated the GCC compiler. We've put on an entirely new printing system based on the common Unix printing system. Very powerful, and yet the average Mac user doesn't see any difference. It just works. But this is tremendous new technology. We're leading now in new directory services that will bear a lot of fruit as people build more enterprise networks with Mac OS 10. We're integrating some of the latest authentication technologies with Kerberos. And we've updated a lot of the Unix commands for the latest, greatest commands that our Unix customers wanted. We've done some really good optimization for the Mac platform with the Velocity Engine and the G4. We've done a lot of work to make it easy for developers like the Sybases, like the Oracles, to port their Unix-based solutions onto Mac OS 10 and make it more and more robust as a Unix. We've got some great database connectivity with ODBC. And we're using the latest internet standards before they're really broadly needed on the internet, but it's all coming. We're going to need IPv6 and IPsec. So this technology is built now so that Mac users can be part of the next generation of the internet. And probably the newest, coolest thing we've done for the Unix customers is to bring on what's called the X-windowing system. So if anybody is a Unix customer coming from that environment, I hear a few, they know they need this to bring on their legacy Unix apps. Again, Mac users don't have to worry about this or use this, but if you're a Unix customer, you care a lot about this. It is very, very powerful technology. And customers asked us to do this. There's been some open source projects out there. We based this on one, but they wanted one that was supported by Apple, that was easy to download, install, and set up. And we've done all that, fully integrating it in the Mac user interface. But we've also made it take advantage of Apple unique technologies like Quartz graphics and OpenGL acceleration. It's a very, very cool release, and it's now available today as a free download. Actually started yesterday on apple.com for our Unix customers. I told you we're going to get a little geeky here. And to prove it, I'm going to like to ask Ken Bruskin up here, Director of macOS Product Marketing, to show the X windowing system on macOS 10. Ken?
Thanks, Phil. So just really quickly, as Phil mentioned, it is a simple download and a simple install. Just go to apple.com/macOS10/X11. Here's our web page. You can do a simple download. You'll get an installer package. And once you install it, we'll include all of the technologies and commands and everything that an X11 application needs. We also install a very simple application in your applications folder called X11. This is its icon. And when I launch it, we have a very convenient menu here that allows you to access any of your X11 apps that you've configured. So for example, anybody who uses X11 will instantly recognize the X clock. Notice how it's drawn in a Aqua window. So you have the close, minimize, and maximize buttons. The window casts a drop shadow. You can minimize the application just like you would with any other macOS 10 application. The other great proof point is we can bring up good old X eyes and have it watch us and follow us as we move our cursor around. We've also gone to great lengths to integrate Quartz and OpenGL. So this is one of the sample applications that comes with the X11 OpenGL environment. We've got very high performance 3D direct rendering within this technology. And of course, as Phil mentioned, this is all about bringing this wealth of Unix applications to the Mac. There's a very popular application called MATLAB. Let me bring up MATLAB here for doing very sophisticated scientific and mathematical analysis and graphical plotting. This application relies not only on the X11 graphics technology, but also Java. And we've got Java built directly into macOS 10. So here's MATLAB, and I'll just switch very quickly to my demo directory. I can take a look at, I have these two images, high resolution images, satellite photography of cloud, and terrestrial imagery from NASA. These are flat 2D images. So I would like to take a look at this, plot it around a sphere. MATLAB is capable of doing that. So I'm launching MATLAB right now, this little simulation app that will take those two static images, map them over a sphere, uses some mathematical analysis to do the transparency for the cloud patterns. And as it loads here, our eyes are still watching us, so this is all completely multitasking, of course. So here it's taken those two images, rendered them on top of each other, took full advantage of the transparency in the system. But of course, this is completely interactive. So I can spin it around. In fact, we can just get it rotating here. And again, everything is coordinated with the graphic system that Quartz provides. Everything is fast because it's accelerated with Quartz acceleration as well as OpenGL. So this is a fantastic way for people to use existing Unix apps and for Unix developers to come to the Mac. Thanks, Phil.
Thanks, Ken. So we've posted this public beta of X11 for Unix developers yesterday. And just to demonstrate what I was saying about how we're becoming one of the most popular, if not the most popular, client Unix operating system, in less than 24 hours, we've had 25,000 downloads of X11. So I think that's a strong testament to what's been happening with Mac as a great Unix platform. So next up is the technology. I want to talk a little bit about Quartz. Quartz is probably one of the most astounding things about macOS 10. We've done something that was only dreamed about in computer operating systems, and it's put us years and years ahead of any other personal computer operating system. And you know who we mean. What it's done is allowed us to create an imaging model where every pixel on the screen is composited together, whether it's from the Quartz 2D system, whether it's from QuickTime, dealing with dynamic media, whether it's from 3D, OpenGL content. It can all be blended together, transparency set together, drop shadows be created between the content, and that allows some very powerful applications as well as just a great user experience. So you know Quartz brings great anti-aliasing. You know it brings built-in PDF support, something that just makes our workflow a lot easier. And you know it does all this great transparency. And now with Jaguar, we've accelerated that with Quartz Extreme, and that has allowed us to take that whole imaging model you see. Everything on your screen can not only be rendered on your processor, but if you have a faster new generation graphics card, we put all that graphics through the OpenGL pipeline, and therefore the graphics chip on those cards can accelerate the graphics for you, leaving your processor free to do other tasks. And this means that as graphics chips get faster and faster, and they've been going at a phenomenal pace, your graphics system gets faster and faster. In fact, every window is actually a 3D texture now in OpenGL. That's one of the ways we can map it through that imaging system. Really powerful. We've done some internal tests in the Apple laboratories. And just to give you an example of the benefits we're getting as we've moved Quartz from 10.1 to 10.2 running with a card that doesn't have Quartz Extreme capabilities, and one where Quartz Extreme is enabled with that graphics card, you see scrolling got a lot faster whether you have Quartz Extreme on or off. But moving windows around, resizing windows, these things got many times faster than 10.1 with Quartz and Quartz Extreme in Jaguar. It's incredibly fast. What I like to do is, rather than talk about it, actually demonstrate to you the performance of Quartz Extreme. Invite Chris Borden up here. He's the macOS 10 product marketing manager. Chris?
Thanks, Phil. Good morning. With Quartz, macOS 10 now is the world's first operating system that has a fully composited desktop windowing server built into it. And this means that Quartz takes all the windows, the system menus, the dock, and treats each as a layer and composites them together in real time. Let me give you kind of an example of that. I've got a QuickTime movie here. I'm going to get running. Let's take a listen to this. Now, I'm sure you all, as users of macOS 10, have seen the semi-transparent nature of our system menus. There's a slight transparency to them. That's the alpha channel support built into Quartz. And in real time, we're compositing this semi-transparent system menu over this QuickTime movie. You can see that QuickTime movie playing through it. So that's an example of how this compositing works in the system itself. Now, with Quartz, before we shipped Jaguar, all the compositing was done on the CPU. And with Quartz Extreme, of course, we've moved that, as Phil described, to the hardware. We've accelerated it using the graphics card in the Mac. So what I want to show you is the performance implications of this. I've got a couple of great performance tools. One is a CPU monitor. And the CPU monitor, we have a dual processor machine. And the CPU monitor is going to tell me how hard each of my processes are working while I'm doing this demo. The other application I have is called Quartz Extreme, and it does two things. First of all, it gives me this great analog gauge. It's kind of a speedometer, if you will. And what this speedometer shows me is how many times per second the compositor is running. The more times the compositor can recomposite per second, the more fluid the graphics are going to be. So the higher that number, the better our performance is going to be. And the other thing I can do with this is actually turn off Quartz Extreme. When it's disabled, that means all the compositing is being done on the CPUs of the system. And when it's enabled, that means all the compositing has been offloaded onto the graphics card using Quartz Extreme. So I'm going to bring up, let me get this movie playing one more time. Let me bring up the terminal. Again, we talked about Unix. Here's a way to get at Unix in the system. It's another great way for me to show you the compositing nature of the system. I'm going to dial in some transparency to this window. And again, I mean, we are now compositing in real time a semi-transparent window over full 24-frame, 3.2 megabit per second QuickTime video. This is very unique to this platform. And as you can see, this looks really great. Now let's start putting Quartz through its paces. I'm going to start moving this window around. And as I move it around, that means Quartz needs to composite, needs to recomposite to keep the motion, to keep the QuickTime playing, to keep this window looking really nice and fluid. And as you can see, as I move it around, that our movie is dropping some frames, that our window, the window that I'm moving, is also moving a little bit erratically. Look at our CPU monitor. We're decoding video in real time. We're compositing the entire desktop in real time. And so our CPUs are actually working pretty hard now. You can see they're near 100% each. You can also see in our compositing meter that we're now running at about 60 frames per second in the compositor. So with the compositor running on the CPU, we're actually getting some performance implication there. I'm going to make one quick change. I'm going to enable Quartz Extreme and watch the difference. Moving around this same window, I'm back to getting my full 24 frame per second video. The window I'm moving around is very fluid. Look at our CPU monitor. Before it had to decode and composite, and now it's only decoding the video. We're now down about 35–40%. And we're running at about 120 frames per second in our compositing meter. In fact, we freed up so much CPU that I can actually bring up in another movie. This movie is actually 30 frames per second and runs at a higher bit rate than the other one does. And even with both videos running and compositing the semi-transparent window in real time, I've got greater than 160 frames per second running the compositor because of Quartz Extreme. So Quartz Extreme really delivers a huge performance improvement to this real-world class fully composited windowing system in macOS 10. Thanks, Phil.
Thanks, Chris. So you haven't seen the fruits of all this yet, but I can tell you a lot of our developers are incredibly excited about the technology that Quartz Extreme provides them and the kinds of applications they can build again. It reminds me of the days when the Mac was there with its first graphic imaging system with things like fonts, and developers got really excited about what they could build while the rest of the world was still running an operating system like DOS and a line-based system, and they didn't have the technologies to build what we got on the Mac. We're starting to build that kind of graphic system again, that kind of differentiation that our developers can bring to you cool applications just not possible on any other platform. Yet we all get a benefit immediately as we turn on our machines because Quartz Extreme just makes it all faster. Well, next up, let's talk a little bit about security. Nowadays, it's becoming a more and more important topic with our computers, both in our networks at home as we're getting on broadband, as well as in the office. An extremely important topic. And we've been very hard working with macOS 10 to provide a great product that is all secure right out of the box, but also some incredible security technologies, both for our end user customers as well as for our developers. Let's talk about a few of those. First, when you install and run macOS 10, we've worked very hard to make it very smart as a Unix platform to be intelligently configured so that it's pretty secure right out of the box. That we don't leave a lot of ports open. You've got to go find and close. That's what Unix customers usually have had to do. When you buy a Unix, you install a Unix like a Linux or anything else, you go in and you start configuring it and closing down ports and trying to shut it down and make it secure. People call it detailing sometimes. You can spend days doing it. You don't have to worry about that with macOS 10. We've made this a very secure product right out the door. Yet we've built in some amazing technology. First of all, a lot of our customers don't know there's a built-in firewall on macOS 10. There's some third-party applications that's created a user interface on that so you can turn it on and enable the built-in firewall capabilities inside the system. More importantly, we've built in some very powerful encryption technologies that both Apple and our developers can use to provide you secure transmission of data, protect your files, using the latest AES encryption. I'll show you a little bit about that in a minute. In fact, we use the disk image software so that you can make your own secure vault, for example, of all your favorite files and protect it from prying eyes, whether it's something you have on your system, or whether you want to transmit files to other people and make sure nobody in between can get access to those. You have the built-in software already in macOS 10 to do that today. Keychain is a very powerful tool. Customers don't realize what a great place this is to secure all your favorite passwords, not only to get access to sites and file servers, but I mean, how many people, have you ever walked into an office and seen yellow stickies on someone's desk that lists all their passwords, that lists all their pins for their cards? I mean, what a crazy thing. These passwords are part of our life every single day. You can actually go in and store these in your keychain, so they're there whenever you want to go find a password, just read it, but when you log out of your system, it's encrypted and secure, and nobody can ever get access to that. What a cool use for the keychain. Authentication is something a lot of our enterprise customers, particularly higher education, cares a lot about, and we've built a very open, pluggable, secure authentication system so that people can add different secure models depending on what environment they're in. And then one of the most popular ones, particularly in education, is called Kerberos. We've included that. We've worked with MIT, included Kerberos authentication, built right into the product and throughout the system. And this is all done with Apple's, I think, one of the most aggressive stances on supporting open standards and open software. And we include things like OpenSSL and SSH and the CDSA, the latest versions for including in an operating system. So we're building on open standards to make the most secure, most advanced desktop operating system. And one of the benefits that we all get as Mac users, moving from 9 to 10, is that because it's based on Unix, we've got a more powerful permission model. when you log out of your computer, on Mac OS 9, you can only protect things at a folder level. Remember the old Apple share permissions? Who can get access to this folder? Because these are Unix permission models, we actually now have file level protection on a per user basis. It's a much more powerful permission model. And probably most important of all in this day and age is we keep very careful track of things like CERT updates and the other ways that we find out about viruses and hacks out in the world and ways people can get into system, and are pretty aggressive about trying to put secure updates out there to all of our customers on anything we hear about or anything people send us in for us to address. I'd like to invite Chris back up on stage to give you a quick demonstration of one of these security features.
Thanks, Phil. So I'm sure you're all very familiar with disk images. A lot of applications that you download off the internet are actually packaged in disk images, and you download them, and then you've got this file, and you double-click it, and you can easily drag your application off of it. It's a great way to store data. It's a great way to share data and transmit it. But it also is a great way to provide a secure vault, like Phil said, for your information. So I've got a whole folder here full of top-secret stuff. I've got Safari presentation that we were working on before Macworld that certainly I'm sure nobody here would be interested in seeing that, but we've got Mac OS 10 roadmap, for example. What's the next thing? Some stuff that people might be interested in, and as a product manager, I need to keep all this stuff very secure. So what I can do is I can use the disk copy application to create an encrypted secure disk image. So I'm going to go into disk copy and create a new blank image, and I'm going to give it a name. I'm going to call it my safe. And I'm going to call the volume that as well. Now I could customize the size of this, and I'm going to go ahead and do that. And I'm just going to make it in megabytes. I'm going to make it a nice lean 150 megabytes. I can format it, of course, with macOS extended format. And I can add, now of course, AES encryption. So I'm going to add AES 128-bit encryption to this disk image. I'm going to go ahead and create that image. Now, AES was created because DES, which was the previous incarnation of a highly secure encryption mechanism, was kind of getting old in the tooth. It turned out that people were starting to be able to build computers that within a couple of hours could crack DES 56-bit keys. So AES was brought in, and now with 128-bit encryption, we have much more security. In fact, if you could build a computer that could crack a DES 56 key in 1 second, which I'm not sure anybody actually ever built that computer, but if you could crack a DES key, 56-bit key, in 1 second, that same computer would take 149 trillion years to break a 128-bit AES key. So even with Moore's law applied for going forward, we still have 80 years of encryption security with this mechanism. So it's asking me now, I'm going to verify, I'm going to add a password to my disk image, type it correctly. And now I can add this to the keychain like Phil mentioned. I can automatically add this to the keychain, and when I unlock my keychain, then I don't have to enter a password every time for this particular image. But I'm gonna make this one extra secure. So let's say I lose my PowerBook and somebody gets into it, and this will remain secure. So I'm gonna hit OK and finish creating my image. And what disk copy has created is 2 files here on my desktop. The first one, mysafe.dmg, that's the actual disk image file itself, and the other one is the mounted image. It mounts just like when I put a CD in or other kind of removable media, or when I attach to an Apple Share server, it mounts. So now I've got this vault that I can put my valuable top secret stuff in. So I'm going to do that. Come over here and transfer all of this great information that I need to protect from prying eyes. Copy it over. And there I go. Now I can just close off my safe. I can unmount it. And now I've got this secure encrypted disk image that I can go back and access when I need to. All I have to do is double click it, type in my password, and it mounts it for me. So it's a great way to keep secure the documents that you need for confidentiality for. Now another thing about encrypted disk images, all this data is encrypted. It's encrypted, and to use it, we need to decrypt it in real time. So when I open the file, Mac OS 10 is going to decrypt that file and then open it and display it for you. We get really, really great file system performance out of our encrypted disk images. It's nearly as fast as normal file system access. In fact, let's say, for example, you're a video editor and you're working on the next project and you want to make sure that the content that you're working on is safe and secure, and you want to store it in that disk image, but you want to be able to work with it off of that, so you need high performance. Let me just give you an example of, I've got a video here. We're just going to play this video right off of the encrypted disk image. As I play it, this is a high bandwidth, a high quality video. It's going to be decrypting and decoding on the fly. So let's take a look.
You made somebody's heart break.
So it's very cool. So with secure encrypted disk images, I've got a nice, safe, secure place and really great high-performance file access to it.
Thanks, Chris. So I think there are a lot of Mac users out there who don't know that they can create secure volumes for their files. And that way, if anyone got on their system by mistake, don't have to worry about it. Or this is a great way just to send things around in a workflow. Maybe you're working with vendors or partners and you don't want anyone else to get access to this. You can just create your own disk image, encrypt it, send it on, and give them the password, and no one else who finds that file can get into it. A very powerful set of tools. All right, next up, let's talk about an application we use every single day. And we've worked very hard to deliver a state-of-the-art, great mail application built into Mac OS X. And with Jaguar, we've made tremendous advancements and improvements on it. And it's got some power in there that a lot of people don't fully understand and haven't utilized yet. And I want to make sure that you do at least so you can get great advantage of this great mail application. The first one was probably its best-known feature, real state-of-the-art junk mail filtering. I think we'd all agree that junk mail is probably now one of the greatest banes of our existence with the stuff we get in our mailboxes. Some of it humorous, some of it just disgusting. I mean, some really gross stuff comes across mail. And these companies have done a great job of finding ways to get through existing systems. Well, we've worked really hard, and we found some amazing technology at Apple that really was ingenious in applying in an application like this. We used speech recognition technology to be able to parse and figure out content of mail for you and figure out whether it's junk. Right? So other filtering things will look for addresses, where did it come from, recipients, who it's sent to try to guess if it's junk mail. Our system actually reads the language in the mail to try to figure out if it's junk. It uses this technology called latent semantic analysis, and it is very, very cool at looking at words and word pairs and what's in the mail to determine what's junk. And it's adaptive. If it doesn't get everything in the beginning, it learns what you tell it is junk and gets better and better over time. We found an average amount of time of using it that customers can easily get 97% accuracy. And that's fantastic. It doesn't have to be 100. If instead of getting 100 junk mails in a week, you got 3, what an incredible improvement that would be. And it has both training and automatic mode. It starts in training mode so you can see for yourself how good a job it's doing, make sure it's just finding what's junk for you, not finding anything that you don't want to be junk. And then where you can also tell it what is junk that it might be missing. And then when you feel comfortable, in a matter of a couple of weeks, you just hit automatic mode, and you never see that junk again. Very powerful. Some other features in Mail that have made it just an even better product than it was when it first came out is if you have multiple mailboxes, and many of us have multiple accounts, maybe you've got your work account and your .Mac account, you can merge these together into one mailbox. You don't have to search through different mail systems. And you can actually do the live fast searching across all these different mailboxes in these different mail accounts. And we've built in some very sophisticated rules. This is one of the most requested features for us with Jaguar's Mail product, was to beef up the rules capability to make it both easy but incredibly powerful. We went even further with the latest release 10.2.3 to not only allow you to have sophisticated rules, but actually to attach and execute Apple scripts as a part of that. We have a lot of customers who are AppleScript programmers who create workflows. And for example, if I'm in a publishing business, I could have an email where we use a specific header, and that header, just header on the front of the email, now is taken in by the AppleScript and executes a bunch of scripts on attached files and helps me automate my workflow. So you can use Mail to automate workflow with AppleScript. So many other things. Rather than go through each one in detail, I'd like to have Chris come back up once more and give us a demo of one of these great new features in Mail. Chris?
Thanks, Bill. So I want to show you 2 things in Mail. Get Mail launched here. Phil talked about the new sophisticated rules in Mac OS X and Jaguar Mail. So let's take a look at those. In Preferences, the last preference here is called Rules, and I can simply create a rule. Now, rules are great. You can, as mail comes in, it evaluates different pieces of that email, and then you can perform different actions on it and automate how mail comes in. Maybe you've got a mailing list that you're on, and you want all that email that comes from a particular mailing list sorted automatically into a particular folder. It's a great way to use rules. What I want to do is just create a real simple rule for you. I'm going to call this my urgent mail. This is going to be mail from people that that are important to me. So first off, I think the most important person I get email from is Phil.
No kissing up on stage.
Prima donna VPs. And I also want to make sure that if anybody sends me email and they've actually gone out of their way to type the word urgent into the subject matter, you know, a lot of people do that. Create groups of users, of people. And mail taps into that. It's fully integrated with Address Book. And I can just come in here and choose if the sender is from Ken's team. Ken is my boss, so any email that comes from the team that I work for, I want to also treat as urgent. So now I've got multiple conditions by which mail is going to evaluate each incoming message. And I can also have multiple actions for each message as well. So for example, I want to set all of these urgent messages to be read. So the subject matter in my view is going to all be highlighted red. I also want to forward any of these messages to another mailbox. Let's say I'm on the road and I want to send this to my mobile phone account. So I can just do that. Now all the urgent messages will forward onto my cell phone account. And last but not least, with 10.2.3, we've added the ability to run Apple scripts. And I can come in here and just create an Apple script, and then that will, maybe I want my computer to make siren sounds and to flash red and do all sorts of funny gyrations when I get this email. So I can add an Apple script to it as well. And so now I've got, this urgent email, urgent mail rule. And so you could go and create rules to your heart's content and add pretty much any capability to it that you want with rules. And you'll see that all these emails now from Phil, for example, those that are marked urgent, those from my people that I work with are now all marked red. And I'm probably getting cell phone calls as we speak. So those are some of the new sophisticated rule capabilities. The other thing I want to show you is junk mail. We've got this new latent semantic analysis engine in Mail with Jaguar, and it's really, really great. What we wanted to do is we wanted to really put it through its paces and test. How accurate is it? Phil said it was 97% accurate. What we did is we went off to this great new website called spamarchive.org. They're out there collecting, they're doing the good work on the internet. They're collecting junk mail, and feel free to go to spamarchive.org and send them your junk mail. I think of them as the Superfund site of the web. So we went out there and we took 500 very typical messages. The only concession I made just for our demo is that I did get rid of the inappropriate material. But trust me, I've tested this at home and it works just fine. And so what I want to show you is I've got the junk mail filter uses a database. And this database we configure, when we ship it, we have a default configuration for this database. We put together a bunch of junk mail and we say this is pretty typical of what junk mail is, so that when you turn training mode on or automatic mode for the first time, it actually goes through and does a pretty effective job of handling the mail. So that's how I've configured this particular mail account right now. I'm using the same default database that we ship. And I'm going to come in here to junk mail and simply turn it into training mode, turn on training mode. Now it's going to go through every message in my mailbox. It's going to evaluate each of them against my junk mail database. And it's going to go and it's basically going to determine the topic of each message. And it's going to compare the topic against the different topics it has in the database. So it's gone through all 500. As you can see, it's marked all the junk messages in brown, and it's added this nice junk mail icon next to each. And you can see it did a pretty good job. It's missed a few. Those that are still highlighted in black, it's kind of missed. Now trust me, everything in this mailbox is junk. In fact, I'm going to come here and let's sort on this and see how many it actually identified. I'm just going to go through and highlight all the ones that it got and focus on those. And you can see from our status bar focused on 77. So there were 77 messages that it didn't pick up, that were junk that it didn't pick up out of the box. It's actually really good. That's 85% out of the box accuracy. So that's pretty good. So the great thing about this junk mail filter, of course, is that it's adaptive. Phil talked about how it learns. The more you use it, the more accurate it becomes. So I'm going to show you that as well. So I'm going to turn off junk mail, and I'm going to quit mail. Now, mail uses this database file. It's actually on my desktop here. It's called LSM map. This is the actual physical file that the junk filter uses to compare against. I'm going to exchange the default one for a map file that has been well-trained, has been used by someone for a while. A very typical one, very typical file that's been adapted, if you will. I'm just going to come and drag and drop it in here and replace the one that I have. So now I'm going to use the new map file. I'm going to launch Mail again. I'm going to go to my second junk mail. Now, this mailbox has the same exact 500 messages that the first one had. And I'm going to run it against this new map file. So I'm going to do the same thing, turn on training mode for junk mail. Once again, it's going to go through all 500 messages. It's going to identify, it's going to evaluate each one of them against this new map file to determine what was junk and what is not. And you can see, once again, it's really caught quite a lot. Let's take a look at how many it did catch. I'm going to go through and highlight the ones now that it caught with the new filter. So you can see again in our status bar, 17 of the 500 missed. So it actually picked up 60 more. 17 out of 500, that is 97%, it turns out. So you can see how it is. It's 90%. It's true. It is 97% accurate. So that's an incredibly powerful tool. I think as you use Mail and you use the junk filter and gain the benefits of it, it's pretty irresistible. Thanks, Phil.
Thanks, Chris. So I don't know if you're using Mail yet, but obviously I want to really encourage you all to take advantage of this junk mail filtering and save a lot of time and hassle in your day, as well as take advantage of these rules. They're very powerful, and you can even have just special keywords that you only tell people that you want to know, that certain keywords will then execute certain scripts and maybe send something to your pager or your phone based on the keyword they use in the subject of a mail. Just simple, powerful ways to start to integrate all the technology in our life. Well, next up, I want to talk about an application that's one of the newest applications in the stable of Mac software. Hopefully you've heard of it. It's called Safari. Just out of curiosity, how many people here have actually downloaded Safari and tried it out? That's amazing. Just amazing. Thank you. I think many of you tried it out, first of all, to see if, sure enough, it delivers on one of the most important things we all want in our Mac life, which is really fast browsing performance. I think you saw some of this data yesterday. We've just got some great performance when we've done our benchmark tests on the latest versions of all browsers on the Mac for HTML rendering performance, the most important thing. But there's been a lot of other things we've worked on and tried to drive just great performance in the browser, including things like Java performance, JavaScript performance. So we've worked hard to make this the fastest browser for you. Now, if you've downloaded it, you probably also noticed something else. That compared to a lot of other browsers, Apple did a pretty good job of making something that was quite svelte. So, if you try to download Netscape, it's just about 20 megabytes. There's a lot of other stuff in it, but nevertheless, for a browser, it's a pretty big size. IE and Chimera, both over 7 megabytes. Safari, down as small as 3 megabytes. We wanted something tight, fast, like a sports car, right? And not only is it a great sports car of a turbo browser, but it's something we've worked very hard to make sure it's compatible with as many of the 10 million websites out there as we could. We're going to continue improving on it now that it's out there as a beta product. But there's a lot of technology, the latest internet technology built into Safari to make it the best browser ever. So things for XHTML and SOX and great plugin support. The standard in the industry is Netscape-style plugins, interface plugins for things like Flash and Shockwave and QuickTime. And so we're going to continue to work on this, but out of the box, it's a great, great product. There's a lot of very cool features in there for those who haven't downloaded it yet. One of my favorites being, of course, instant access to Google searching, and then snapping back, making it easy to make your bookmarks. Pop-up window blocking, very powerful. It's one of the other banes. If junk mail is the bane of email, then pop-up windows are becoming the bane of websites. And there's some you want, and there's others you wish didn't get in your way. And so we do things to help you with that. One of the other things we didn't get to talk about yesterday is we've thought ahead to how can we start improving things for you, like making downloads easier. And don't you hate it when you get to download something, then you got to decode it, then you've got to delete the file that's left on your desktop, and you have to be the janitor of downloads. Wouldn't it be great if a browser started to make that a lot better? Well, Safari has the technology to do that. And for people around the world, the Mac customers have really been clamoring for great worldwide language and Unicode support. So all these things are in the new Safari public beta. We've done some other things, too, that are really cool, like Rendezvous support. We'll show you an example of how that can be important to you. And of course, it's Apple scriptable. Cookies are a part of everyday life. They're necessary for a lot of websites, but wouldn't it be better to manage them with a little more control? And we've done some good stuff in there. And I think you've heard yesterday, this is based, we cannot do this all ourselves. It's based on an open source engine, but we've been working on it for a year to dramatically improve its performance. And we've posted all those changes back to the community that has created the core of this engine. And yet, for those who are in the development market out there, I think you'll be impressed that this is a very tight, small piece of code. Only 140K lines of code make up this product. And we've made it so that our developers can use it, just as we're going to use it at Apple, as the core of HTML rendering for their products. So developers can now have on the Mac a great browser to build applications that we all get to use the benefit of, and they don't have to write their own HTML engine. They can get it from what we're going to provide inside Safari as an API on macOS 10. So with that, I'd like to invite Ken back up to give us a demonstration of some things you might not have seen in Safari. Ken?
Thanks, Phil. OK, so this is the Power of 10 presentation. So I'm going to take you through Safari and show you a couple of its really, really cool capabilities. In fact, last night had a great time going through various web discussion forums, reading all the positive feedback, and there's amazing feedback from the enthusiastic Mac community. There's a couple things I need to point out to people. A lot of people asked, I love the simple new look and the elegance of Safari, but I really need my home button back. I go to home websites all the time. Well, I definitely urge you to check out the View menu. You can turn on not only a home icon, that when you click somewhere else, you can click the home icon, takes you right back to your default start page. You can also bring up a text size control that allows you to adjust the size of the text within websites, larger and smaller. As you see, I've enabled the status bar as well for people who want to be able to see what the URL is before they click it. You can choose to have that on. I prefer to have it off to, again, have that really, really simple, clean look. Now, let's do a quick tour of some of the preferences in Safari. Phil talked about cookie support. This is actually a really, really great and what we think is a smart feature. Cookies can be used for good, remembering things like passwords for sites that you go to frequently, so you don't have to always type your username and password. But cookies are also used occasionally by advertisers. And what we've done with the cookie management in Safari is you have three choices. You can have Safari always accept cookies. You can have it never accept cookies. But here's the smart new third option. It allows cookies from the site that you actually chose to go to, but it rejects cookies that are coming from domains outside of that website. So if you go to a news-oriented website, we'll take all their cookies, but something that comes from doubleclick.com or another advertiser, those will be rejected. So this allows you to have the good and get rid of the evil. We also have really great international support, as Phil mentioned. macOS 10 is based on a really great Unicode text rendering technology and text system. We also include, by default, fonts that cover most of the written languages around the world. And of course, Safari takes advantage of that. So let me just go into my languages site as an example here. We could go to Le Monde, one of the popular newspapers in France. And it's going to load that up. It's going to use the Unicode mapping. All the characters are properly accented, renders just beautifully. We have some Japanese-oriented sites, a variety of languages. Let me just go to the BBC World Service, because the BBC actually publishes their online newspaper in a variety of languages around the world. So we can choose from 43 different languages. If I want to go to the Chinese edition, for example, again, it loads it up, renders it extremely well. These fonts are all built into macOS 10. They're all extremely high quality. You don't have to install anything. You don't have to configure anything. Safari figures it out, and macOS 10 does the rendering. Now, on the pop-up blocking front, if you go to the Safari menu, you'll see this really convenient block pop-up Windows command. I have it enabled right now so that we wouldn't be interrupted by any of these annoying pop-ups. Now, I'll turn it off, and I'm going to go to a really, really cool nature site. And this is a fantastic site, but the very place that I want to navigate to has actually been obstructed by this pop-up. So I want to get rid of it. If I navigate into, let's say, mammals, this pop-up is insistent, keeps on popping up. If I were to take one more step in, say to cats, there it is. Well, I'm tired of this. Block pop-ups. And now when I navigate into eNature, no pop-up. Into mammals, no pop-up. into cats, no pop-up. Take a look at the Jaguar, get right to the information, navigate the way I want to. Now, the bookmarks library, again, as Steve mentioned yesterday, if you know how to manage your playlists in iTunes or your albums in iPhoto, you can now manage hundreds and hundreds of bookmarks using this really familiar single window interface. Here we see our bookmarks bar. We can configure our bookmarks menu. You saw seeing all your web pages that are stored in your address book. But this icon is really, really cool. It's called Rendezvous. And when I click it, it's going to discover any web servers that are advertising themselves using Rendezvous on this network. In fact, devices are starting to have web servers built into them. In fact, let me click here, and we've been bitten by the demo gods. So let me describe what this did exactly 35 minutes ago. We have a couple devices on the network here. One from one of our partners, Brother, who's this week, introduced Rendezvous-enabled network PostScript printers. And you turn on this printer, it advertises on Rendezvous, it will show up, normally, directly in this. In fact, we have this up and running in the booth as well, so you can check it out. And you can just click on it. It's like an automatic bookmark. So when you open it up, you don't need to know the IP address. It'll show you the configuration for the printer, allow you to see exactly what jobs are there. You can manage the paper and all the options that the device is. And it's really great to see various manufacturers leading the way as Brother, bringing this technology to Mac users. Now, the last thing I want to show you in Safari is the simplified download experience. I've put together a really simple demonstration. This is another powerful feature of disk images. As Chris mentioned, we have encrypted disk images. Well, with macOS 10 version 10.2.3, disk image and the disk copy application supports a new type of disk image format. It's called an internet disk image. It's a very simple process for any developer to convert an existing disk image into this new internet-ready format. And what it does is it tells Safari detects that there's this new version of disk copy, and it will take care of getting rid of any temporary files so that you get to the information you're downloading instantly. Here's how it works. This file, I know it's a little bit hard to see, but this is a disk image that has been encoded with BinHex, so it's a .hqx format. Normally, you download this thing, you have to run a helper application to convert it from BinHex into a normal. Then disk copy launches, it mounts on your desktop, you have to copy it to where you want it, unmount the disk image, and get rid of 2 or 3 files that have been left on your desktop. This is how it's going to work with Safari once people convert their disk images to this new format. You click to download. The download process happens very quickly. And as soon as the download's complete, you'll see that Safari is controlling disk copy in the background to download, decompress, take it out of the disk image, get rid of the temporary files, and just leave you directly with the thing that you wanted to download and use. And there it is. I won't play that right now. But that is truly a simplified download experience. It's another one of the really great things about Safari that all of you are going to enjoy. Thanks, Phil.
Thanks, Ken. Now, of course, we've already been thinking ahead at Apple and starting to use this ourselves. The latest downloads from iCal and iSync, and of course Safari, which is a little bit recursive, but they've all been made to also support this new download internet format to disk images. So the goal here, make all our lives a little easier compared to PC world users. The Mac users can now have a much better download experience for finding things on the internet. Now, yesterday we made Safari available to customers to download and get on the web, and you get to be the first to hear, so how'd that do? Now, the biggest day of downloads we ever had in the history of our tracking it at Apple was for what to date has been the most popular Mac app ever, which is iTunes. iTunes is the most popular Mac app that we know of ever. And during the many days it's been downloaded over the last 2 years, we've had a peak on one day of over 100,000 downloads per day for 2 days. And that was what we did with iTunes. And we're very proud of that. Just phenomenal traffic downloading iTunes. So How did we do with Safari? In less than 24 hours, Safari has had 300,000 downloads. Yeah. If anybody wonders, or Mac users looking for a really cool, really fast browser, I think you have your answer. 3 times bigger than any download record we've had at Apple in the past. 2 other interesting points. Remember back in the presentation we talked about X11 and that 25,000 copies of that were downloaded. Well, we looked at what browser they were using, because all browsers register what they are with the website. 50% of those downloads were done with Safari. Isn't that great? That is so great. And further, we've looked across all of Apple.com, and you know we're a pretty big site, and we have a lot of customers in a day, and all downloads of anything on Apple.com in the last 24 hours, 20% has been using Safari already. 20% of all Mac download traffic via Apple.com. That's just incredible, incredible. So thank you for all of you here who have already said you've downloaded and tried it out. And if you haven't, it's like, wow, what are you waiting for? Everybody's getting it. It's the hot thing to do. All right, last technology topic before we wrap up with my favorite section is just about tools. I want to talk just a minute about tools because we've been very, very hard at work for our developers, for customers moving over from the Unix world on a great tool strategy for them. And what is that? Now, that is to create what is an integrated suite of tools that allow our developers to create everything from existing Carbon apps to the latest object-oriented Cocoa apps. A lot of the technologies and products you'll see that are coming are all based on Cocoa now. One of the many 3 million programmers out there programming Java to now use our development tools for Java. And again, we're talking about Project Builder and Interface Builder. And we've also now moved AppleScript into the same development tools that people used for Carbon and Cocoa and Java. And as well, of course, WebObjects uses these same tools. So we now have one development platform and environment that spans everything from AppleScript to Carbon and Cocoa and Java and WebObjects in one unified programming environment. So we're very proud of having brought this all together. And it, of course, allows for some very rapid application development. And we want to make sure there are a lot of great Mac developers. So as you know, we bundle this for free with every Mac and provide it with Mac OS X. Because who knows where that next great young developer is going to come from. And we want to make sure they have instant access to all the tools they want. Well, in December, if you're a developer, you may not have had a chance with the holidays to check out your mail and find that we've updated our developer tools with a significant release in December. And if you don't have it, you can get it at the Developer Relations booth here at Apple. But we've updated it with the latest GCC compiler, and we've made it a lot faster. Particularly if customers have symmetric multiprocessing machine, dual processor Power Macs, they're seeing significant performance increases. And for some things, people are seeing up to 6 times increase in compiling speed. We've also improved the quality of the code they generate. We've improved the ability to import projects moving over from CodeWarrior. And for people who use AppleScript, and we have a lot of our professional customers do, we have a completely new Cocoa-based script editor. So a lot of great development tools available to our developers. And if you are one, I urge you to check this stuff out now. It's where all the new great apps are going to be coming from. So why does this matter for those of you who aren't developers? It matters because look at the great adoption of Mac OS X we've had over the last 2 years. We've done a phenomenal job working hard for you to make sure you have great software on Mac OS X. And we want to keep doing this. We want to see the slope of this line to continue to go up. And having great tools allow rapid development of entirely new applications in applications that maybe aren't only just on the Mac as well as Windows, but maybe are better on the Mac or even first on the Mac can happen if developers have great tools to use all this cool technology we've been talking about. So that leads us to the last section before we're done. A section we did last year that was, had a lot of great reception, which is something we called Hidden Gems. There were just so many great applications out there in those 5,000 plus applications. Oh, and I forgot to mention, on those 5,000 applications, we're very conservative in that count. We're counting only native Mac OS X apps. We aren't counting the thousands and thousands of Unix apps you can get, or Java apps that just run on Mac OS X. In fact, if you go up to SourceForge, you can see there's over 12,000 projects up there. Most of those can run unmodified, recompiled on Mac OS X. So if we wanted to be aggressive, we could talk about 17,000 applications. But we want to be very conservative and just talk about the Mac-specific apps. Okay, so hidden gems. This is my favorite part because I get to drive, literally, and also play with some of these cool applications for you. And we have a great developer relations team that works really hard scouring the world for the coolest software to make sure it gets on the Mac, and also so that we get the chance to show you some of this stuff. Now, I'm not sure if you can see, but please make sure you notice the dock on the bottom of the screen. Like last year, we looked for over 100 applications to show you, and we're going to try to get through each one before lunch. No. And I think this demonstrates the power of the dock as just a great metaphor for finding things. We've got over 100 applications here in the dock, a lot of hidden gems that maybe you haven't discovered yet out there looking for the next cool piece of software that makes your day a lot easier. I'll just roll through a few of these, give you a sense of them. Really cool calculator there if you're looking for an HP calculator. But very great software all throughout here. And I'm just going to pick on a few of the ones that I think are pretty cool that you may not have noticed or had a chance to see yet, and a little bit of diversity in some of this stuff. So let's start with something really simple and fun. All right, you're traveling back from the show, you're on a plane, you want to kill some time. The Windows guy next to you is playing cards, like, oh, how 1900s, you know? So just go get a copy of something cool like Pop Pop from Ambrosia Software. What a cool, simple interface, a lot of fun. Let's go play a game. I can play it myself or versus somebody else. I can invite somebody to play on a network. Maybe you have an airport network going on the airplane while you're flying. But I'll just go to the computer here. Let me pick who I want to be. This guy looks pretty rad. And I think you'll know the metaphor of this game, but it's pretty simple and straightforward. So let's get going. So you can be playing with people, having a lot of fun. Yeah, it's familiar. You notice the breakout metaphor. Pong for the third generation. All right. I can't stop until we're done. No, I better stop. Okay. I hate it when the little robot guy beats me. I like to beat him. All right. Next up, let's shift gears and talk about something more of an educational nature. This one, I found this scanning around some of the cool stuff we have, and I thought, oh, I wish I had this when I was a student. Physics 101. Wouldn't you like to have in a single piece of software access to all the cool algorithms and calculations you need to do as a physics student? Well, somebody's done that for you, so you can get access to this or your kids in school. And I'm sure they won't let you sit there with your iBook during a test, but otherwise, trying to figure this stuff out, it is so cool and fast. There's calculations for kinematics, for vectors, for calculating work and energy and momentum and gravity. It's so cool. Let me give you an example of one, just the simplest one in the whole thing. I looked through it all, and some of them I remember, and some, my goodness, I don't have a clue. But let's pick the simplest calculation in the whole product, finding simple velocity. Let's find simple velocity. It's down here in the bottom left under the kinematics. So maybe we're going 500 meters, and we get there in 16 seconds, calculated that, well, we were traveling 31.25 meters per second. Now, if you want to learn, but well, how did you do that? It's not enough just to get the answer. I need to understand it. Let me click on the question mark, and it tells me the calculation. Oh, it's very simple. Velocity is a delta of distance over time. So simple, educational, you can explore it, and you can go through this and find just incredible things. Maybe I'm looking at gravity, I want to find the escape velocity. Well, it's very simple to calculate this stuff and figure out, well, how do you do that, and what's the formula for escape velocity? So you can explore this to your heart's content. There's really cool stuff. I love showing this vector calculation so you can just see how it really tries to help the student both learn, understand what the variables are, see the dynamics. And you can solve for any variable on the list. You don't have to solve just for the variable at the bottom. So there's a cool example of a great piece of software, a hidden gem you might never have seen before. So Physics 101, if you have kids still in school or are a kid at heart, you got to try it out. Okay, next up, something so many of us use, another completely different hidden gem, a screensaver. It's always great to find really cool screensavers, and I think this is the coolest one I've ever seen. It's the Cosmos screensaver, and what it does is allow you to put the solar system on your screen. So it's going to bring in planets and their satellites, and while it's sitting there and you're having your coffee or taking that important business call, your computer's actually showing you planets and their satellites not only looking beautiful, but in actual orbit in the proper place to an accuracy of 1 arcsecond. So is that cool or what? Yeah, I think this is just a really neat product. Let's look at a few of the other bodies before we quit the screensaver. Cool. Pretty place to hang out, huh? You probably freeze to death, but it's very, very pretty. That's the Io, moon of Jupiter. I wanted to make sure we got to Earth because Earth is particularly cool for a couple reasons. One, because we all get to hang out there, but also because this is actual cloud data that's gathered once every 3 hours from 5 satellites around the Earth and put into the product. Very cool. Okay. Now, for the next demo, I'm probably going to need some help from any chemists in the audience. I think many of you have heard that the Mac, particularly Mac OS X, is becoming extremely popular in the life sciences market. We have just hundreds of incredible applications for genetic research, in this case, molecular modeling. So let's look at a molecule right up here on screen. We're going to look at a molecule. Let me open up something I think that's appropriate for this time of day. Caffeine. This is the caffeine molecule. So if any of you are wondering, why we all like it so much, well, it's plain as the nose on your face, isn't it? Here's caffeine. And not only can we see it, but if you're designing molecules, you want to get in there and understand, for example, things like electron potential. So let's go in there and let's look at some surfaces. Let's turn on surfaces to help demonstrate the electron potential. And this is color-coded. The areas where you see red have a higher chance of electrons, blue a lower chance of attracting electrons. Well, we can actually, let's change this into a transparent mesh so that you can see, oh, I get it. The electrons are gathering around the oxygen molecules. Makes total sense, right? I know you all knew that, right? Which is why if we turn on the surface for potential ionization, you'll see around those oxygen molecules, they're most likely to ionize because that's where the electrons are hanging out. Well, thought that was way cool. I hope you do too. So in life sciences, there's just some amazing stuff happening. Okay, now if we want to keep in the science realm, I thought something that had a lot to do with physics would be really cool, and it's, of course, racing. So this is the part of physics we can all get. So this is a brand new game. Hopefully you've heard about it, NASCAR racing, and it does 2 very significant things besides just being a heck of a lot of fun. One of the things it does, it is based on 10.2.3, we now have force feedback for games in Mac OS X. You got cool things like this Logitech steering wheel that has force feedback, so when you hit the rails, you can feel every bump. And it also has built-in support for rendezvous. So when you want to set up a network race or network game, you can dynamically find other people playing without having to set up any IP addresses, because Rendezvous does that automatically. So let me go in and I'll get a quick race started. And people around here know that I'm an insanely bad driver and you want to keep out of my way. So I don't promise I'll do great at it, but at least get started and have some fun. So we're going to load up a race. And we'll just forget all the cool parameters. Let's just drive. I can change my angle of view, Let's get, oh, I'm behind.
Limit 55. Keep it under 3,000 in second. Okay, you're clear of pit lane. Don't merge yet.
Very cool. It's my boss in front of me. You didn't come here to see me just have a boring race, so when I get out into the flats, I'll try to make it fun. All right, let me get back on the track now. Whoa, spinning out. All right, back up. Oh, I'm going the wrong way. No. All right, so that was part of the plan. I'm really not that bad. So if you're looking for a cool way to kill some time, that NASCAR racing game is so cool. One of these new force feedback reels just make it a lot of fun. Okay, let's see. I have one more demo I'm going to use on this machine, and it's of something that's been announced here at Macworld, and it's a very cool new technology that integrates with QuickTime from Kadara. And it's what if you could have 3D objects inside a QuickTime space, and you can move around them where you have control. So yeah, it's playing, but you have control of angle of view and scene and lighting. How cool that would be, particularly for a lot of our customers in Hollywood who do a lot of 3D scene visualization. So let me open up a document into QuickTime. And it uses this format from Kadara called FBX. And we're going to open up, it's a QuickTime movie. Let me make it a little larger for you. But unlike any other QuickTime movie you may ever see, when I start playing it, if I do nothing, will just stay exactly it is. But I'm not going to do nothing. And you're going to see my ability to manipulate around this 3D space. So it's begun. Let me hit a key to play with some of the lighting. And now what I'm going to do is, you can see there's a grid. Oops. There's a 3D grid there. It really is a 3D space. Turn on some lights. Let me move them. I can move them around. I can zoom in and out. I can control my 3D space. I'm in control of this 3D space. Went through his body. Cool. So again, this is some very important technology to a lot of our customers down in Hollywood who work on movies, do 3D scene visualization before they actually create the animation or take the shots. And now, for the first time, they can be using whatever 3D rendering packages they want, but QuickTime can be the product that they provide those scenes to other people to view. They don't all have to have the same 3D application where it came from. QuickTime becomes now the best view in the world for 3D content as well as all standard digital media. So that's Kadara. Pretty cool. Okay, now for the last demo, and I think we're going to end this one on something really, really cool, and I think it's the coolest hidden gem I've seen in a long time. It's a product that hasn't been introduced yet, and it's coming out in the next quarter. And it does something really amazing with core audio and music on Mac OS X. And I wish I had the talent to demonstrate it properly, but I don't. So I'm going to ask Mark Altacruz, our audio marketing manager at Apple, to come on stage and give a demonstration of this killer new audio application. Mark?
Morning, everybody. Thank you. You know, if there's one thing for certain in all my years of playing guitar, I know that 50% of the sound of an electric guitar doesn't happen at the guitar, it happens at the amplifier. Now, folks, there's a lot of different kinds of amplifiers. There are tube amplifiers. There are solid-state amplifiers. There are amplifiers that are both tube and solid-state. There's digital amplifiers. The list goes on and on. There's different kinds of speaker cabinet configurations and all kinds of things. Well, our friends over at IK Multimedia, a company over in Italy, they make some very, very fine audio applications for guys like me. What they've done is they've done a technology called physical modeling. And what physical modeling does, it enables me to grab a hold of any combination of all these different amplifiers, because every one of these different amplifiers creates a different kind of sound. Well, the problem is, I like to use a lot of different kinds of sounds, which means if I use real amplifiers, I got to have a lot of different amps. Now, if I live in New York City, it's kind of hard to go to a gig with 10 or 12 different kind of amplifiers. This application allows me to have combinations of 1,260 combinations of amplifiers and effects. All right? Let's see how easy it is to use. You take a cord, you plug it into your guitar, and the other end goes into any Mac that has an audio input. So, one of the things I love to do is Saturday afternoons, I get together with a bunch of friends, and we go jamming in a garage. It's either that or paint the house, so I think I'd rather play guitar. So we call tunes, okay? Somebody says, "I'll play a Hendrix tune." Okay. Get the idea? All right, so somebody says, all right, what about the next tune? What do we play now? And I go, Angus, AC/DC. Right? AC/DC, yeah. And so he says, okay, let's call another tune. How about some country? Okay. Watch the knobs turn. I love this. Okay? Little delay in there, little slap back. Rock and roll. Next one. Somebody says, let's play a Judy Garland tune. Here comes the schmaltz. Okay? It's so difficult to get great jazz sounds out of an amp, to get all these multitude of sounds. But here's the other cool thing. I get back from playing with my friends in the garage, right? I'm still itching to play. I want to play. So I call up iTunes. And our friends over at Hal Leonard, they make these apps that are music -1, kind of like Guitarioke, you know? And I'm going to choose a sound here. Let's go with this one. Power. And we come over here and we go, all right, let's hear this thing. That can go on forever. Anyway, so let me summarize for you. This application will be out, as Phil said, sometime this quarter. It operates on Mac OS X only. Yeah. You don't need any audio interface. You plug directly into it, and it's $99. Thanks. Have a good show.
Mark Altacruz playing every night at Macworld, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. If that isn't the coolest hidden gem you've ever seen on a computer, I don't know what is. The Mac truly as the musical instrument paired with his guitar is just incredible. Before we're done, I also want to make sure these hidden gems looks easy, but it takes a lot of work. And our developer relations team worked really hard on it. In particular, one person, Robert Carrer, worked incredibly hard, so I want to thank him very much for the help with that. So that's our Power of 10 for You show this year. I hope we made the hour worthwhile and showed you some things you've never seen before. Encourage you to go out and try some new features in 10, try some new software you may not have seen, and I hope to see you again back in Macworld next year. Thank you.